But I always understood that he was my boss. And like, you hear people leaving and they get all, they get, because they get upset. Oh, you thought he was my friend. No, I always understood he was my boss. I went back in 2000. None of the writers, they were all giving me different ideas. On the afternoon that I first debuted the Goodwill Ambassador, Mr. McMahon said to me, right, this is what I would like. And you've got to go out smiling and waving, because I'm used to just going into normal thing. No, he said, if you go out actually smile, you've got to believe in the fact that you are helping people. Because if you believe it, it'll stick it up their backsides more than you trying to just go and snarl at them. And it was, okay, let me give it a go. And that worked out pretty well for me.
Yeah,
right?
Very well.
And anything he ever, I had a great thing with Mr. McMahon. I'm never that friendly. We are friendly. We've always been had a little things here, but he's my boss. And I know that one day he's had to this year. He had to let me go because there was things happening, and it was best that I wasn't there, right? I understand business, and I had a wonderful time in WWE, incredible time. I've got nothing bad to say. So I went back there, and he said, right, Darren, he said, when I've got a good role for you, you'll be in it. And if not, you'll be on live events or house shows, as we used to call them, and you'll be working. And that's it. That's how I see you coming into it. And if you look back, that's exactly what I had. I had memorable, entertaining roles that were done well. And he always knew, and that was a great thing I learned from him. Finish them early. Never let any of the roles that I had overstay its welcome. And I put that down to Mr. McMahon, right? He would say, right, because when I first heard, I mentioned it before, the thing with Edge, we're going to take you out of this commissioner role. Oh, right, because I'm thinking this is all going well, because we can go back to it, which I went back to it in different forms many times. But if you burn it out, it's no good. And because he trusted me it was a big trust thing with us. And again, I'm not an egomaniac. And I know what the job's about. I understand what my part in it, or I knew my part in it when I went there, because he told me, right, when I've got the right role. But now your role is to try to make Edge, which it worked, make him look like he can take a good hiding, and we're going to go off in this different direction. And so we came up with an idea. I said, I need a reason, which was to be humiliated, to turn into this vicious different side of me, which is actually what we did with the kissing his backside thing. Like anybody wants to say what they want about that. That was an idea. I didn't come up with that idea. I said, I just need a really humiliating experience to get me out, just to get me out of this role, but to make me spiteful so I can go and pound on Edge, take it out on him, to make him look like a tough guy so he can go on to, I think it was Kurt or whoever.
Yeah.
So I would have made it work, right? And so, which anytime he put me with anybody, put me with Tajiri, it worked. Put me with Eugene, it worked. Put me with the Pirate, it worked, right? Anytime I was in, and anytime that they needed me, it worked. Or I was constantly on tour, which is what I like to do, going overseas all the time and making a good living, being on house shows. Be honest, I didn't care about being on TV. I just liked being on house shows. And the reason we talked about this beginning, I was just left to be me on house shows. I wasn't working for the story. I could just go out and show the world. I could do all my wrestling, do all my entertainment. Usually I was like a one-man, like pantomime show if I needed to be, or a serious, whatever that was needed on the card. TV wrestling isn't regular wrestling. It's very difficult and very different. I'm better off being just a live event wrestler. I go out and do all my stuff. on TV, I've got to do a certain role and it's in a certain time. Another thing that was things that people don't get about me. They trusted me with some incredible. If you're an ego merchant, you can't do what I used to do. They trusted me with a lot of things. They would always usually put me on after a big talking segment, because big talking segments, you cannot time them and they end up running long. So I was the next segment a lot of times, and it could be, right, you had a 12-minute match, but now you've got, I've had it cut down to 90 seconds. Never hear me complain about it, because I get the role. I know that we have to, so I go, yeah, you want that? Yeah, thanks. And come back, thanks, you've just saved us a load of time, because not many people can do that. So I always knew my role there, right?
Well, because I've got 3 more questions for you I want to try and get through.
Please, so, this is, as long as nobody cares, this is what I do, right? So
I appreciate you. How important was it that in those first 2 years of William Regal in WWF, so 2000, 2001, how important was the fact that you were associated on screen with Vince McMahon so much to that run?
Right, and that's why, when I say I wasn't too close with Mr. McMahon, I was close in a lot of ways, because we spent so much time together doing filming stuff. But I always understood that he was my boss. And like, you hear people leaving and they get all, they get this, because they get upset. Oh, I thought he was my friend. No, I always understood he was my boss. And so, but we would have a lot of laughs together on doing backstage stuff, or waiting while they were setting the lighting up, and I'd be telling him jokes and he'd be telling me old stuff, wrestling stories. So, but that was it. But look at the time that I had on screen with him. You think that's not transferring to me and giving me, right? People don't look at this, oh, it's all about having, no. It is, if that's your thing in life. If you want to go out there and try to be the best wrestler in the world, that's a fool's errand, in my opinion. Because if one person thinks you're not the best wrestler in the world, you aren't the best wrestler in the world, are you? Right or wrong?
Yeah, you're right.
Right. So that's something that I learned early on. It's not good trying to worry about that, because I'll just do my job, right? Whatever I may be, I'm not going to chase that thing, because I've seen it, unfortunately, send a few of my friends off, not here anymore, because they drove themselves insane trying to keep up to a high standard. I'd go out and do whatever I had to do on TV. I know that given me time on live events, I could tear the house down with a lot of people. But it's not my role on TV, because I'm not seen in that role. Because I'm a utility guy. Utility guys of a certain standard are very, very hard to find, that don't moan and complain. I've had so many people, producers, used to be called agents, go, why are you the easiest person we got here with? That you don't complain about, you just do whatever you're told. Yeah, because it's my job. Because I get that, because the people that taught me when I was a teenager, just do your job and that's it. You're in the job you're in. So I didn't have all this grand thinking of being a star. I was just fortunate, I was happy to be in the job I was in and making a good living doing it. Getting to be with Mr. McMahon constantly, or involved. Look at the stuff I was in as the Goodwill ambassador, right? I was in stuff with The Rock. I was in stuff with Steve Austin. I was in with all the top players, right? And it just builds up whatever it is about you. I talk to different fans now that they've only seen me for certain bits of my career. How can you see me? If you're 25 or 30, how much of me can you know? Right? This stuff's 20 odd years ago, but if you saw me around that time, I'm associated with all the top people there. And if you look back at the actual live event records, I was wrestling most of them. I was in 6-man tags on against The Undertaker and Steve Austin and The Rock and people. There's a lot of that went on. But it was not on TV. I was having interactions with Mr. McMahon, with The Undertaker, with Steve Austin, with Kurt Angle, with The Rock, with everybody. So it just built up my whatever. I'm the most beat wrestler in the world, but why do people care? because not because of me. Yes, a little bit of me, but because Mr. McMahon was, and the writers and whoever else was in charge were good enough to put me into all these segments, and it built up my thing over time. And there was times when I was just doing whatever, but if you look, it was mostly doing something of some note, or a huge amount of it that could, or getting put with Booker, right? That was just a one-off thing, and I made the most of it. And then you get another run, and then you get another run, and it's longevity. And it's because of longevity and putting out a body of work, and people remember me. Everybody remembers me. Some. If you ask some people, he's just a boring wrestler, right? Yeah, well, yeah, you might have been if you've seen me do that, and that was my job that night, to just go out there with a certain wrestler and do just a normal. Don't go out and steal the show. Don't try and do anything. I'm working to rule. I work to orders. That's what I used to do. So if they give me the chance a few times on pay-per-views, I think there's one with Christian that said, right, go out and give it to us. Well, was it Breaking Point or something? Yeah, we went out and and I was getting pretty beat up by that. It's like, that's when my neck was really bothering me. I was on the very, very end of my career there, right? I went out there with a bad heart, really bad heart, a bad neck, and I can still turn it up, right? The stuff with CM Punk I did at the time, there was little of it on TV, but we were wrestling on house shows all the time. Never had the same match twice. We went out there and tore it up. A few short matches on TV, they were in a very high quality of things, and they're only short. There's one of them 12 minutes, there's a couple that are 5 or 6. That was it. But they're high, I could still do that. So there's all these different levels of whatever it takes to get wherever. Being associated with Mr. McMahon at the beginning was a huge help. And then again, like there were several times when I ended up doing big things with Mr. McMahon, and he gave me all this wonderful TV exposure. And it was with him, who's the person who, if you look back, he's the guy that everybody knows. And so just being with him made it work.
I just want a year off. I need to just rest. I knew it's coming because the person you sent to try to look over us, I think is an idiot. And I'm telling him to his face that he's an idiot over and over again. And he can't have that. And I understood that. I understood that because nobody knew when Triple H, if he was ever going to come back. And I didn't know. So I it's total makes business sense to take me out of the equation, because everybody there didn't matter what happened, they still come to me.